This is Saul Canelo Alvarez, and this is Terence "Bud" Crawford, a matchup that feels like pure danger, a true super fight. The clash between these two stars seemed almost unreal, and the build-up captured every highlight of fight week along with expert predictions. Observers said this fight began long before the opening bell.
Hagler and Leonard and Duran and Tommy Hearns and those kind of fighters, and by the way, Sanchez and Gomez and the great fights from years ago. This is one of those, and you're all a part of it.
Quiet mornings when each man separately pushed through the relentless training that forges legends. During camp, both fighters were immersed in their own rituals. Crawford prepared with a focused transformation, moving up to super middleweight while carefully adding muscle to preserve the speed and precision that kept him unbeaten. His trainers fine-tuned his strength and nutrition, so those extra pounds fueled his power rather than slowed him, pairing him with larger sparring partners and conditioning him to keep his elusive movement. Across the ring, Canelo's camp carried an air of measured intensity. Classic mitt and bag work mixed with unconventional drills that revealed the instincts of a seasoned champion. He even kicked a soccer ball to sharpen his footwork and vision, balancing technical drills with reminders that he remains an elite athlete at 168 pounds. Promotional teasers framed it as the sharpshooting technician against the battle-tested powerhouse, but behind the hype their daily grind was strikingly alike. Size and history complicated the narrative. Canelo brought weight, championship experience, and the calm of a man who has endured every storm, while Crawford offered an unbeaten record, brilliant ring IQ, and a willingness to chase a legacy-defining victory. When fight night arrived, it would come down to whose preparation turned into split-second decisions, iron lungs, and the courage to give and take. Boxing legend Roy Jones Jr. added his prediction, dismissing concerns about the weight jump. He noted that Crawford's careful muscle gain mirrored his own move to heavyweight and insisted the added pounds wouldn't hinder him. Jones admitted that if he were betting he'd side with Crawford, explaining that while Canelo could win if everything went perfectly, Crawford had 6 ways to win, compared with Canelo's 1. Many observers began to question whether Canelo Alvarez still possessed the same hunger and drive. While Terence Crawford seemed determined to keep accomplishing more in boxing. The former 4-division world champion who raised these doubts didn't explain his reasoning, but the contrast between the two fighters was striking. Crawford faced enormous obstacles, moving up in weight, shaking off ring rust, and handling a difficult stylistic matchup, and for the first time he couldn't dominate and overwhelm an opponent at will. That left some wondering if he had already reached his physical peak and whether his most commanding performances were behind him. Canelo, meanwhile, was coming off a lackluster unanimous decision win over William Skull, a bout remembered for record-low offensive output. While much of that could be blamed on Skull's constant circling to avoid engagement, Canelo's inability to cut off the ring still raised questions about his urgency and endurance at this stage of his career. Yet boxing history shows that doubts like these often surface before career-defining nights, and are frequently proven to be overreactions, since true Hall of Famers inevitably face such storms and emerge stronger. Adding to the conversation, former opponent Jeff Horn shared his own prediction for the fight. Horn, who lost his welterweight title to Crawford by 9th-round knockout in 2018, believes Canelo might try to start aggressively and overwhelm Crawford early. However, he can also imagine Crawford surviving the initial onslaught, using his skill and timing to outthink Canelo and finish him in the later rounds, much as he did against Horn himself. Horn pointed to Crawford's precision, saying that if Bud weathers the early storm, he could exploit openings, land clean shots, and eventually tire and stop Canelo. Meanwhile, respected analyst and former world champion Andre Ward, widely regarded as one of the sport's sharpest minds, offered his own take as part of the Netflix broadcast team, noting on Instagram that one of Canelo's greatest assets remains his commanding ring presence. A former four-division world champion questioned whether Canelo Alvarez still has the same hunger, while believing Terence Crawford remains eager to achieve more. He didn't explain his doubts about Canelo, but the contrast between the fighters was clear. Crawford faced major challenges, moving up in weight, shaking off ring rust and dealing with a tricky style, and for the first time he couldn't completely dominate an opponent. That sparked talk that Crawford might have reached his physical peak and that his most powerful performances could be behind him. Canelo, meanwhile, was coming off a dull unanimous decision win over William Skull, a fight remembered for record-low offensive output. Though much of the blame went to Skull's non-stop circling to avoid exchanges, Canelo's inability to cut off the ring raised questions about his urgency and stamina late in his career. Still, boxing history shows that doubts like these often appear before defining nights and are usually proven to be overreactions, because great fighters must weather storms of skepticism and come out stronger at least once. Former opponent Jeff Horn added his own view, recalling how Crawford won his first welterweight title by stopping Horn in the 9th round in 2018. Horn predicted that Canelo might try to blitz Crawford early to exploit the size difference, but he also saw a scenario where Crawford survived the initial assault, used his sharp skills to outthink Canelo, and finished him late, just as he had against Horn.
Bud's gonna do good. He's gonna do good, but I don't think he's gonna win. But I do see Bud, like, getting a lot of punches off, being able to tag Canelo with some good shots, but they have no effect. That's the thing.
He has the best chin that I've ever seen.
Nothing moves his head.
Horn highlighted Crawford's pinpoint accuracy and said that if Bud could endure the early pressure, he might find openings, land clean shots, and possibly wear Canelo down for a late stoppage. Boxing legend Andre Ward, now an analyst for Netflix's broadcast of the fight, praised Canelo's ring presence, noting that even when Canelo is resting he keeps coming forward, creating a sense of constant pressure that can drain opponents. Ward observed that both fighters are puncher boxers, meaning they can box but prefer to inflict damage, and when they do box it's usually to regroup or set up power shots. He warned that in September both men would need to be careful boxer-punchers who pick their moments rather than attack recklessly. In an August 29th interview with Fight Hype, Ward made his pick clear. He's backing Terence Crawford, calling it a dangerous weight jump but insisting that no one has yet proven they can break Crawford's will or outsmart him in the ring. Ryan Garcia also shared his opinion on Cigar Talk the same day, saying Crawford would land plenty of punches but doubting they would hurt Canelo. Garcia admitted he once thought Canelo would win easily, but he now reckons
The best. I just think that he's biting a little bit more than he could chew. But you never know. If anybody can do it, it could be Crawford. You know, I do see him, like, when he fights, I'm like, damn, how do you beat this guy? You know, he could do it all. He could box. He bang.
recognizes the challenge is tougher than he first believed. His concern is Canelo's intensity, which he feels has dipped compared with the days when Canelo fought Caleb Plant. Garcia questioned whether Canelo still has the energy for a second or third effort in grueling rounds, pointing out that when Dimitri Bivol forced extra exchanges, Canelo's defensive reactions sometimes left him off balance. Garcia acknowledged Canelo can still counterpunch and remain slick, but wondered if he can sustain the relentless drive that once defined him.